Opinions are like assholes. Everybody has one.
I don't think I've ever seen anything quite like this before.
You know, Wobbles, I'm kind of mad at you.
And as a reasonable man, I'm willing to do whatever's necessary to find a peaceful solution to these problems.
Okay, let's begin. Welcome to Punching Up, the movie podcast. Two mates, chat films, agree, disagree, fight, battle, have fun. Today we're going to be dealing with the Terrifier trilogy, or the Terrifier quadrilogy, or even the Terrifier, what's 5?
Quintet.
Terrifier quintet, which it will be because Terrifier 4 is coming out. The Terrifier trilogy is a film about a miming clown who kills, dismembers and brutalizes his victims in the most disgusting way. Art the Clown was introduced in 2008 in a short film called The Ninth Circle, directed by Damian and then a short film in 2011 called Terrifier, which was predominantly about Art the Clown. Then in 2013, Damian Leone made an anthology film bringing them all together called All Hallows Eve, which incorporated the two shorts with another short, Something in the Dark. And then, with the popularity of Art the Clown, in 2016, he released his first feature about art, Terrifier, which has very little plot, takes place on Halloween, and is all about the kills. In 2022, he releases Terrifier 2, which expands the world of art, again on All Hallows Eve, and posits the idea that he's a demon of some sort, and introduces us to Art's nemesis, the final girl, Sienna Shaw, played by Lauren Lavera. Nasty killings, darkness, blood, guts, dirt. Art gets a friend in this one, a demonic pale girl, and there is lots of blood. Terrifier 3 came out this year, 2024, and this time it's set at Christmas, so this is kind of like our Christmas episode. So happy Christmas, everybody! Art returns this time. He literally gets reborn in a beautifully, in a manger type way, and comes back to demonize Sienna and her brother, who are both experiencing vast amounts of PTSD from the previous meeting with the demon Art 5 years ago. Again, loads of horrific murders, torture, bloody artistic mayhem, and that's your lot, really. It's just a clown going around killing people, pretty much. Let me hand it over to my co-host. I'm Damian, by the way, and let me hand it to my co-host Adam, who will give you a little bit of background.
Yeah, it's so much more than just a clown going around killing people, but we'll get to that in a minute. Dare I even use the word nuanced? But the story of the background, just to sort of put flesh on the bones of what Damien has just said, goes back to a little boy called Damian Leone, whose mum took him to see The Lost Boys, aged 3. That had a massive impact on him, implanted in him a love of horror. That was cemented by watching a movie, not a movie, a VHS, about some of the kings of special effects. And that made him fascinated by the sort of process of creating monsters. It also led to a fandom, a lifelong sort of fan obsession with Tom Savini, the great sort of architect of gore in many classic horror movies. Consequently, he sort of started generating his own special effects with his friends. He went to a convention where he bought a Tom Savini machete with a little semicircle cut out with it, which you could sort of attach to your head, and started just learning the mechanics of making blood effects. He decided he wanted to go into filmmaking. He lasted one day at film school and then decided it wasn't for him, and decided that he was going to sort of make his own movies, which his mum funded. His mum funded the first succession of films. I think she pretty much funded All Hallows Eve. In all of these films, the thing that seemed to capture people's imagination was Art the Clown. So he decides to expand that into the feature that becomes Terrifier. I think a lot of the money was raised on Kickstarter campaigns and things like that. The film is a sort of modest success and just sort of leads to, it's a bit of a word of mouth hit, actually. It's on streaming, doesn't get a cinema release. It actually has sort of famous people weigh in, like sort of banging the drum for it, like the wrestler Chris Jericho, who mentions it on his podcast. And then kind of, I think he has Damian Leone on, talks to him. and wants to be in the film. Damian Leone writes a part specifically for the wrestler Chris Jericho. And then the bloody disgusting website raises the money for Terrifier 2. And this is where things really take off. We're going to sort of stop there. We're going to go back a little bit in time because of the story of three people. The other significant contributor to the franchise is David Howard Thornton, the actor that plays Art the Clown. He's not the first person to play him. In the first succession of shorts on All Hallows Eve, he's played by a friend of Damian Leone's called Mike Giannelli. Mike Giannelli isn't sacked or anything like that. He just doesn't want to be an actor. So he's played Art the Clown, I think, 3 times in 2 shorts and a feature, and just isn't interested. So David Howard Thornton turns up at an audition. Now, David Howard Thornton is probably the most unlikely horror star in horror cinema because his inspirations were Mr. Bean, so his auntie gives him a Mr. Bean video, and as a child he's obsessed with Mr. Bean, loves Rowan Atkinson's physical comedy, and that's the direction of travel he wants to take as a performer. And he ends up doing lots of children's theatre, and then he ends up on a tour of The Grinch Who Stole Christmas the musical, and ends up being mentored. Let me find his name. Yet by Stephen Carl, or if you're a child or a parent of a certain age, you'll know as Robbie Rotten in the Lazy Town TV series. Brilliant sort of physical performer, and he's mentored by him, and he thinks that's going to be the direction of travel. And then there's this audition for this independent horror movie called Terrifier, and his agent tells him, indie movies, that's the way to go. He turns up and he does this absolutely brilliant audition where he's miming cutting off someone's head. As far as Damian Leone is concerned, the audition is perfect, and anybody else who turns up, he's not interested. He's seen his man, and the success of the first Terrifier film is as much to do with what David Howard Thornton brings to it as to Damian Leone's like gore special effects. And then in Terrifier 2, the final bit of the secret sauce really is Lauren Lavera, because in the first film there are heroines, but he hasn't really got an antagonist. And Lauren Lavera is a stunt woman who doubled for Anya Taylor-Joy in Split. Had a really positive experience working with M. Night Shyamalan, and that sort of just sort of basically put in her the desire to kind of become an actress. She did lots of little small roles, probably the most prominent one being a little role in Iron Fist as a martial artist, and auditions for this, and the combination of the fact that she's actually quite a good actress, she's very physical, could do a lot of her stunts, and let us not forget the costume she wears in Terrifier 2, because she wears this kind of Valkyrie costume, and that's become a bit of a fan favorite of men, heterosexual men or horror fanboys, maybe even middle-aged men with white beards, and that effectively kind of cements the chemistry that continues into Terrifier 3. Financially, these films exponentially do incredibly well. The second one on I think it's something like a $500,000 budget makes something like 18 million or something like that. I've got the it's sort of it sort of makes on a $250,000 budget, it makes $15 million. The second one on a $2 million, the third one on a $2 million budget makes $80 million at its opening weekend, then goes on to gross $80 million and counting probably, and famously dethrones or takes the spot that has been pretty much assumed that Joker 2 was going to take when that was released. So Joker 2 is expected to be a massive success because the first one made $1 billion. It ends up flopping so badly. I think it costs Warner Brothers $200 million.
Oh, what a day.
And then this scrappy, nasty little clown film dislodges the sort of big budget Oscar-winning clown film and becomes the highest grossing unrated film in cinema history, and is now an unstoppable disreputable, nasty money-making
Juggernauts.
franchise, which
Mhm.
I love, and I thought Damien liked because we had quite positive conversations about it in the last
We
podcast
did in the last
and off
one.
air.
Yeah.
But it's now the subject of punching up. So I think I sort of rambled a bit
Yeah.
through the background information.
No,
like I
that was
normally
good.
do. So
That
I'm
was
gonna hand
great. There
over
was
to
loads of
Yeah.
really good information there, mate. I didn't know about at all, so that's cool.
No, it was
I
the most fun one to research we've had in a long while. So I'm going to hand over to you because I'm intrigued as to what you've changed, because you hadn't seen Terrifier 3 when we last talked, and then
hadn't
you
even
seem
seen
to.
Terrifier 2, I don't think.
Oh, you'd only seen one. Okay,
Yeah,
so
maybe.
yeah, I'm gonna hand over to you and tell me why this is on Punching Up.
Yeah, why is this on Punching Up? It's on Punching Up for many reasons. There are lots of things in Terrifier trilogy or the Terrifier franchise that I like, but there are also lots of things that I have issues with. Primarily and I know it sounds ridiculous, but primarily the gore, the amount of bloodletting. I love horror. I can watch gore, but I feel if it's Al Gore for the sake of Al Gore, then I am not really on board. We discussed briefly last week about last time about how we neither of us saw Cannibal Holocaust or Ferox or any of those films. Again, for the similar sort of reason that it just feels like it's shocking for the sake of being shocking. It's the MGM motto, ars gratia artis. Art for art's sake. So it's actually violentia gratis violentia, violence for violence sake, I think. Especially in the first one, it feels unwarranted. It feels like, and also I don't want to throw like misogyny at it, because obviously in the Terrifier 2 you do have like a strong final girl, and there is more dimensions to the characters, but some of the violence against women. Do you remember you were saying one of the reasons why you were hesitant to watch Last House on the Left was because you thought it was going to be incredibly violent, and it was also going to be violent against women, remember? And then we watched it and it really just wasn't as violent as we thought it was going to be, although it was violence against women. I have a problem with the first all three sort of major kills, like in the three films, like the sawing in half. They do something similar in Bone Tomahawk, right? So just to set it up, a woman gets sawn in half. She's hung upside down and she gets sawn in half from crotch to head. And it's brutal, disgusting, and unnecessary. It doesn't. It's just there to shock. Doesn't move the story on in any way, shape, or form. And then similarly, the friend of Lauren Sienna's friend in 2, who gets like absolutely flayed and absolutely brutalized. I just don't feel comfortable with it. I think that you need to have more of a narrative, and I know you were saying there's nuance in it, and there is a bit of nuance, but all that stuff about, and I'm sure you'll argue against it, and that's totally fine, all the stuff about good versus evil, there's not enough of it for me. It's too hinted at rather than expressly shown or explicitly shown. That the idea of him being a demon, like that's great. Okay, well, let's make him a demon, like, because at the start in the first one, he's literally just turns up, he's got this big bag of like bin bag with like loads of saws and stuff in, and then just like kills people. You don't know why, you've got no idea. And even in the second one, it feels like they're sort of shoehorning it in, the idea of opening the world up. It's great, why not open the world up? It's fun. He is a great character, and like you'd said in the last one, Art the Clown is the first antagonist, or the first like boogeyman that we've seen for a while, that's kind of taken on a life of his own, in a sense, and like Freddy and all the great slasher killers. but there just feels something missing to me. I saw 1, 2, 3. I enjoyed them more progressively as they went on, but in each one, I just found, yeah, I don't know, like I it just felt a little bit too sore, torture porny, unnecessary, not really scary, just bloody. You show me a samurai sword chopping off a head and blood splitting out from like the 1960s, and like I'm into that. I'm into blood. Like I don't mind that, but it feels like that is in there's a narrative, whereas here the narrative is too loosey goosey and feels like a show reel for an effects horror effects guy, which it kind of is, you know, like but he's making his own film. So yeah, the glasturbation, the sawing the lady in half, the flaying of the woman, the whip thing that he's got, which is like it's come straight out of the Passion of the Christ, with all the razors and stuff. Just unnecessary. Like you can kill them. I don't mind you killing them. I don't mind you beheading them. I don't mind you doing like really nasty things. But how nasty it is was too nasty for me, because I don't think he earned it. So that's why I brought Terrifier into the mix.
Fair enough. I thought it was funny though when you said I have a few issues from it. The world has issues with the Terrifier trilogy.
Sure.
yeah, they are just massively popular. And this is weird because I'm not a massive gore fan, but I think the thing is, and this is going to sound awful thing to say, is I think it's a roller coaster. It's fun. It's supposed to be kind of extreme and ridiculous. And I think this is a Damian Leone quote about his own violence. Yeah, he said if you're a horror fan, they're a corrective to decades of diluted studio fare. They are also, if you're in the right frame of mind, quite funny. So I think there's a jet black sense of humor that kind of pushes it away from, say, the kind of the Saw movies, and also I think he's answered charges of misogyny, and it's the way his corrective is just say I'm not a misogynist. He just keeps repeating that, which I think is quite interesting. He goes, I'm not. He goes like, yeah, and he said, look, I was raised. I think he was his mother was a single mother, and he was raised with sisters. And also when you hear all of the women that, you know, basically the women that talk about working with him, they don't bring that against him. I mean, obviously you can make the case, well, this is your cash cow, but I think they genuinely seem to be on board with him as a human being, and they think this isn't some kind of, I suppose when you look at Argento films and you see that Argento is quite, when you see him interviewed, he doesn't come across as a particularly balanced human being, you know, and there's something weird going on, like the fact that he sticks his daughter in like all of these kind of weird situations, some of them kind of borderline sort of sexual violence. He's not like that. I think this guy's a well-adjusted man who loves the genre, and he's deliberately button pushing and knows, and I think he loves the art. He loves the art of special effects. He loves extremity, and he's having fun. And from him, it's just the most adult version of a carnival ride you could have. I think it's leavened with a lot of black humor, and I'm glad we're doing the trilogy, because as it goes on, each film kind of speaks to the other film in terms of like, well, we had that horrible bit, which I couldn't believe I was watching with the hacksaw, which is probably the most contentious kill. Although the one people tend to talk about is the bedroom murder in the second one.
Just goes on. It keeps going on. I think
Yeah. And what he said he reverse engineered it. This isn't really making a case for him. He said he found a photo of a Jack the Ripper victim and reverse engineered it from that. Figured out from the photo, well, how did she get like that? Let's go back and figure it out and sort of do it. I think what he does is he does listen to his. Well, he actually says that he listens to his criticisms and then sort of provides corrective. So it's like, well, you know, we haven't really got a final girl. Let's provide one. And he's gone on record as saying, like, she's the character that he actually cares about the most. She's the heart of the film. Having said that, she suffers enormously, especially in the third one. I think the stuff that but I think from a sort of narrative point of view, I actually like the fact that you don't genuinely know when you're watching it how this is going to end. You know, so I'm sitting there thinking, please let so and so survive until the end, and you don't know whether they're going to or not. And so that creates a sense of narrative jeopardy. Mixed in with that is the fact that that even if a character survives, they've been punished brutally. You do get the catharsis, and this dance goes on from. You do get the catharsis, which wouldn't be as cathartic if Art hadn't done so many horrible things. Of him eventually, in some form, getting it at the end of a movie. Not so much in the first one, getting it himself. You know he's going to come back. That's the rules until Damian Leone decides to not do it. But in terms of like the horrible killing in the first one, in Damian Leone's defense, he does cut away from the blade, touching the sensitive bits. But then he provides a correlative kill where a bloke gets it with a chainsaw, which is, there's nothing left to the imagination there. So he's like, well, you think I'm a misogynist? Fair enough. I'm going to show a naked man, and the woman isn't naked in the first one. I'm going to show a naked man getting it up the ponder's end with a chainsaw.
She is naked in the first one, isn't she? I think she is.
No, she's not. She has. I think she. I don't think she is. I think she's.
I don't.
I'm not, oh, is she? Okay.
All right, so, but I don't know. I might be wrong.
Yeah, but you see enough, but you don't see. That you don't see the. I don't want to sort of go into the forensics and the gynecological forensics of what you see and you don't see, but you don't see the bit that would make it just even more. Whereas in the third one, if my memory serves, there's a guy killed in the shower, and you see everything, and it's like, all right, I'm going to do this to a man. It's even more explicit. I'm an equal opportunities body mangler, but I actually think as a movie, he is interested in the gore. He's unapologetic about that, and I do like unapologetic filmmakers who just stick to their vision, and it's like, we're going to push this. This is the reason I'm doing this. It's fun. It's a fun night out, and I think that the gore's horrible, deliberately horrible, shocking. But it's weird, and this might say something about me. I don't find it offensive, and I'll give you a point. And I don't find it like, what's the word? I don't find it really disturbing. I find it's horrible to watch. It's kind of funny in a way, because we talked about this in the last podcast. David Howard Thornton brings this. There's always a little kind of moment at the end that kind of leavens it with humor, and I genuinely don't think the violence is meant to be sexual violence, because Art is not. He's androgynous. He doesn't care about. It doesn't turn him on. It makes him laugh, and that's the point. And David Howard Thornton talks about that. He says essentially he does it because it amuses him. He finds it funny. So whereas obviously in Argento, in Last House on the Left, these are sexually motivated murderers, and that adds an extra level of kind of disturbance. But actually, weirdly enough, considering what he does and where Art does it with various saws and chainsaws, it's never about the sex with him. It's just about, is this funny or isn't this funny? And also what I like is I genuinely think it's not an excuse when he talks about Sienna. I think she's a crucial character. She's brilliantly played, and she really is the heart of the film. And that sort of makes that adds the emotion and adds the level of jeopardy.
How I'm coping? Well, I've been in and out of a psychiatric hospital for the past 5 years. I see images of my dead friends and relatives on a daily basis, images that wake me up screaming in the middle of the night. I have hideous scars all over my body, and every time I see them, I think of how that sick fuck who ruined our lives is still out there. And you want to know how I'm coping with everything? You guys are all the same.
And I think there's loads of little lovely sort of moments in between killings where, like, it's almost like, well, in a Violent Nature plays with this. It's like, what does a serial killer do when he's not killing people? In that, he just wanders around a forest. But in this, you think, well, what you actually see him go to the laundrette, which I think is hilarious, after a massacre. And it was, well, how would he get all that blood off his and he just goes to the laundrette, and he's sort of sitting there kind of in the nude washing his clothes, and then of course someone walks in and he has to kill them, but that's kind of incidental. And then I think we talked about this in the last podcast, where you have that moment where he just sort of sits and almost like hibernates, doesn't he? And you've got his little assistant sort of playing, and kind of getting on his nerves. You get a little sense of the interior life of this demon, and the life in between kills and kind of what he does when he's not killing people and things like that. And I actually think some of the best scenes also aren't so much the kills, they're the lead ups to them, where he's just doing his little mind business and just like slightly getting on people's nerves, and and they just think he's this kind of And the scene in the joke shop is it in two, where he's just winding the owner up and freaking Sienna out.
Sir, if you're gonna put that in your mouth, you gotta pay for it.
And the horror of that, which I think these are brilliant sequences, come from the fact that you know what he is. She's starting to suspect what he is. And the guy that's going to have a go at him has no idea what he is, and you know where it's going to go. So I think there's loads of scenes in between the kills that kind of give the film a lot more integrity. So it's not just a catalogue of brutal murders. There's all these elements sort of playing with each other that I kind of love. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I hear what you're saying, mate. I just let me just go back a little bit to All Hallows Eve. Did you watch All Hallows Eve?
Yeah, well, I think All Hallows Eve's different. Yeah, so that's different from the other three. Yeah,
I just wanted to go back and just mention it for a second. The girl who plays the babysitter, Katie Maguire, in All Hallows Eve, and she's throughout the film. She also plays Monica Brown, the TV news anchor who gets disfigured. She's really good.
Yeah.
Like, I really like what she did, and it's difficult as the next films show to be that character, or to be a character that is believable. Sienna's mum, I didn't enjoy what she was doing at all. I found it she may be a really good actor, but again, I wasn't sure how good Damian Leone was with his actors to elicit those kind of and maybe that's not when he's doing Terrifier 1, that's not at the top of his list. Obviously he wants people
but I think you're watching an actor who's basically learning as he's going, because Terrifier 1 technically is really crude. It's very crudely made. And I think I think that's, to me, that's the most disturbing one, because you have a whole sequence where a lady's taken to hell effectively, and she's sort of kind of, there's a sexual assault, isn't there? And that is, Art hands her over.
That's in the Ninth Circle, yeah.
Yeah, hands her over to the devil, and that's disturbing, because that clearly is. It's clearly that he's handing her over, to have that done to her. Whereas that's kind of jettisoned in the other movies, and also you see him technically get better as he goes on. So it's almost like All Hallows Eve is his film school that we wouldn't normally see. That's kind of like a student film, and it's crudely made. But I actually think the performance of the girl in the final section, which is very art centric, who sort of discovers art in the
she's driving in the car, you mean?
Yeah, driving in the car in the garage in the service station. She's very good. She's incredibly good.
She is good. Yeah.
And again, her fate's quite disturbing. So I think what he does is he learns as he goes on, and what he does is he strips out like the sexual violence, which is like explicit or implied in the first one, and then even though as we've talked about, the killings are very kind of, some of the killings are very genital, very gynecological. It's not motivated by that. And so I think by the time he gets to Terrifier 1, technically he's improved enormously, and there's a slickness and a competence for filmmaking that just gets better and better with each movie. And by the Terrifier 3 is just incredibly well made. I just think it's very well choreographed. It's brilliantly. But I love the surrealism as well. I love the fact that I actually like the fact that I think it seemed to me sort of fairly obvious. I don't know if that's because I saw the first film knowing that there were, that these had been made. There was a third one on the way, and that he kind of was a demon. But it felt obvious to me that he wasn't just going to be a killer. And also by the end of 1, it's obvious that he's they actually kind of lay the cards on the table at the end of 1 that he's not human. And I quite like that. I like the expanding of the world. I like the fact they don't completely explain him. Well, they hardly explain him. You just know he's a demon. But I love the little kind of the little sort of trips into his world. Like in 2, probably like one of the most memorable sequences is at the Clown Cafe world, this weird sort of children's television world that he exists in, and then he's sort of setting fire to everybody and things like that, and I like that. I like that sort of slight dip into sort of Nightmare on Elm Street territory, where you're kind of in his world, and she kind of visits it in her dreams, and then sort of literally towards the end of the film, and you know, and that open, and also what he's doing, he says he's kind of introducing bits of lore. He has a strategy that he's going to do 5 films, you know, with him and David Howard Thornton, and then he said he doesn't care if other people license it and go off and do other things with other actors playing Art the Clown. He says, but because he's done his thing, that's his own timeline, it's locked. So we haven't seen everything, and a little bit more of the world's opened up with each film, and without giving the end of Terrifier 3 away, it seems to sort of just basically imply that the next Terrifier 4 will take place kind of more in Art the Clown's demonic world than in the real world, you know, and things like that, you know, and so I like the fact that he kind of learns, he adjusts, he listens to criticisms, but he still retains his sort of absolute commitment to providing you with really disgusting kills, which I think you know when you're watching them aren't real. You know, I mean, it's that paradox, isn't it, where you're watching something that's forensically like accurate, bloody, disgusting, but it's still like a fun ride. Whereas I'll tell you what I was alluding to earlier. I saw Joker 2, one of the most disturbing bits of violence I've seen in a film, because you're not expecting it in that context. There's an assault perpetrated on Joaquin Phoenix in Joker 2, and a lot of it takes place off camera, and it's the nature of the site. It's basically a sexual assault, and you think, I wasn't expecting that in this film. You know, and that really takes you out of the film. It shocks you. And I don't know if it was a sort of good bit of storytelling or a misjudged bit of storytelling, but it's genuinely shocking because it feels real in a way that nothing, however sort of forensically accurately rendered in Terrifier 2, feels real. You always know, you're watching a horror movie, you know, this is disgusting. You know that everyone on set is getting on with everybody. They're all going to go home, even though, you know, Lauren, I was keep wanting to say Lauren Laverne, but it's not her. Lauren Laverne. I was going to say, yeah, the actress who plays Sienna, you know, famously said, you know, she says she basically got bashed up, knocked up, but bashed up, knocked about,
Yeah.
bruised. But she's a stunt woman, and she kind of like that, you know. She said that the famous sort of Valkyrie costume she thought was great when she was wearing it, but as she's kind of becoming more sort of involved in fight sequence covered in blood, it's starting to get a sore or some things like that. And she kind of says she regretted that it was so popular because, you know, she says it was actually a pain to wear it. But you get the sense that she's a trooper telling a story, and she's kind of glad it all happened and loves the kind of knockabout element of it, and seems devoted to Damian Leone and David Howard Thornton, who seem incredibly nice men, especially David Howard Thornton, who seems the most sweet, lovely, nice guy, who just happens to have stumbled into this thing that I think if he felt that these were genuinely nasty and misogynistic, he wouldn't do them, you know, because he,
yeah.
So there's all of that, you know, that sort of, and yeah.
I love
the fact that it dethroned Joker 2. I just think it's great. It's a great testimony to kind of sticking to your vision.
Hubris as well, though. Joker 2's hubris.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
All Hallows Eve, there is a friend of mine. There's one degree of separation. A friend of mine, actress called Robin Kerr, is the voice of Katie Maguire's friend in the Connecting the Babysitter's Friend, and also the Alien one, the second story. She's also the voice of her friend. She does like a sort of her normal voice in one of them and then an American accent. And I was like, oh, I wonder who that is. Anyway, I went and I saw it was my friend Robin Kerr. She's a really, really good actor, and we didn't get to see her, unfortunately, but we get to hear her play 2 different characters.
Did you ask her for any? Did you reach out to her and ask for any Damian Leone stories that
I didn't
completely torpedo my theory? And no, he was horrible. He's a monster. He like beat us.
I'm sure he's fine. I'm sure. Yeah. No, I didn't. I've not been in touch with her for a long time, actually. But It was nice to hear her. Do you know what? Like, the fake out credit sequence at the end of All Hallows Eve is the scariest part of the whole Terrifier trilogy. Like, it's genuinely scary when you know what I'm talking about. The credits roll, and then it sort of fades to black, and then you've got Art the Clown on the TV, like looking towards you.
Oh, I think I missed that. I think I must have
Mate. That's the best part of the film. It was amazing. It was like it was just such a really clever thing to do because like the credits come up and then it goes VHS sort of style and then it goes back into what she was seeing on the TV and it's Art the Clown just like coming around the corner. And it was great because it was like it reminded me of Ringu, you know, Sadako coming out the TV, like which is obviously a genuinely scary bit. I want to be scared. Like, I know there's comedy and it's fun, but I want the stakes to be higher. I don't want to just feel like I'm just going to see art dismembering people for an hour and for 2 hours and whatever. Like, I mean,
they are very long slasher
they get
movies,
flipping
aren't they?
long. Yeah, and do you know what? They're paced well. Like, let me say,
Yeah.
I'm not watching it. You remember you were talking Nightmare on Elm Street. You were saying it's 90 minutes and you were bored in parts of it. You're not really bored in Terrifier. Like they become better made films as they go along, and you don't feel there's anything. I did like the Clown Cafe sequence in 2. I felt that aspect of it really kind of opened up the world in a way that was more explicit than what I was saying before about good and evil and almost a bit Freddy-esque. You're in his world now. I like that, and look, I'm gonna go see Terrifier 4. I'll probably see Terrifier 5. Like, I didn't see any of them at the cinema. I saw them all on streaming at home, and yeah,
Maybe
I don't
that's the
think.
difference.
Yeah, I don't think he's misogynistic. I don't think. I think it speaks to a deeper cultural, societal problem, which is in horror films, women get brutalized. They've been getting brutalized for a long time, and I'm just not comfortable with it, mate. The way it's put together, I just don't. It's like go kill all the dudes you want to kill, like chainsaw the dude's nuts off in the shower, cut the guy's dick off in the parking lot or whatever. It's fine. I don't mind that, and I'm not saying women don't need to die, but like it's a horror film. People are going to die clearly. But look at the wonderful death in A Violent Nature, the yoga death, right? With the thing. Like I wasn't offended by that at all. Like I just thought that was incredibly inventive and really well put together. Whereas in these, I didn't feel that it had that,
But I think with that death, however brilliant it is, it looks kind of, it's so ridiculous. It looks kind of a bit artificial, and that sort of that adds that bit of distance. Whereas I think it's almost like Damien Leone's too good at his job. Yeah, he's too good at his job, and he wants it to look realistic. He wants it, and he's a brilliant. I have to say, he's an absolutely brilliant SFX guy or makeup effects guy, and his stuff it's like
sure.
authentically horrible looking. Apparently, he used real meat as well in some of the murders. But also, I think there's two things. I think he's playing with the tradition. So in a way, he's playing with tradition in which women get killed, and he's very self-consciously doing that. And I suppose the reason that, the reason is the sort of strength dynamic between a killer and a woman is, a male killer and a female woman. The irony being that Art the Clown isn't physically particularly strong. I think he is in the film, but the actor isn't. There's scenes where he sort of disrobes and you see him sort of washing his clothes. And the guy's, he's not like Kane Hodder. He's not like a bodybuilder or a tough guy. He's actually sort of physically quite weak, and so obviously the strength is super. I think there's bits where he just hold people up, doesn't he, by the neck and pin them to the wall. So I think he's playing with the tradition in which women get killed. So I think that's a very deliberate, and he does, he just killed quite a few men. I mean, not as many, but men get killed, kids get killed. That's like we haven't talked about that. That's great.
I like that. I'm
Well,
down with
I like
that.
that because because you're thinking, are you going to do it? There's that point in 3 where you think, are you going to go there? And you think, of course you are. It's Terrifier, and that's the whole thing.
I
No
mean,
one's
he goes there, but there's a lot of kids that die when you don't see them get killed.
yeah. I mean, because that's the thing.
I
That's the
mean,
thing. The interesting thing is he does have standards. There's an element of self censorship where he almost knows what's too far. He says so.
mm,
Yeah, there's the a heavily implied murder of a child, like within the first 15 minutes of the film, and then there's the bit where he kind of kills loads of kids, you know, when he dresses up as Santa and he kills loads of kids, but it's kind of over in a second, and they don't
yeah.
linger on. But you know they've done
Mm,
it, and it's the fact that he's done it, and he knows, like, all
mm,
right, I can chainsaw a man's bum in half, but if I show, if I
mm,
show I can kill a child, but I can't
mm,
linger on it. So he kind of knows, and there's bits where he talked about, like the bit where he talked about the man's willy getting chopped off. He said he conceived that, like art to go around and use it as a toy, and he said, no, that's too far. So it's almost like
mm,
there is that part of his brain that kind of knows where the line is, even if his line is like the horizon compared to everybody
mm,
else's sort of line.
yeah.
But there's also a really funny thing I forgot to say in the in the sort of background information for Terrifier 2, just as an act of perversity. And also they're making the point that these films never get awards recognition, and I was looking at Tom Savini earlier, who makes an appearance in Terrifier 3, and the fact that he's never got an Oscar nomination. Whereas
Wow.
other makeup effects like Rick Baker, Rob Bottin have won Oscars. They've got Oscars. Why? Because he
Mm,
works below a certain sort of, he works in extreme horror, and he doesn't tend to do, like Spielberg's never going to ask Tom Savini to kind of come and do something, and or Paul Verhoeven,
mm,
like the other people I've mentioned when they got their Oscar nominations. And I think it was the chief exec of Bloody Disgusting and Damien Leone submitted Terrifier 2 for Oscar consideration for best makeup
really.
effects. And they said, I've got the quote here, but I might just paraphrase it. They said that what they said they didn't expect to win. He said on the one level they felt, well, why shouldn't a film like this, if it's got the best makeup effects, be considered for an Oscar? But he said it was more to do with the fact that if they submitted it for Oscar nomination, members of the Academy were obliged to watch it. And he said they just thought it was hilarious watching all these ancient members of the Academy
Yeah,
forced to
brilliant.
watch Terrifier 2. A film that would basically be dirt on their shoe otherwise. And they just thought it was hilarious that they'd force these people to sit through this two
Mm,
and a half hour movie of just full of all the stuff we've been talking about. But also just going back to something you said a moment ago, I saw all three at the cinema, and it's so entertaining. See, I mean, my normal setting for going to see a film is to see it in the afternoon with no people in the cinema. Audiences annoy me for various reasons. Uh, too many phones coming out, too much chatting. But I'll make an exception for something like that because it's pretty wild. I went to see Terrifier 1 and 2 in a special screening, back to back. So that's kind of pushing 3 hours of no problem. Yeah,
mm,
3 hours of
more.
this sort of
Yeah.
stuff. And I don't know if it was Stockholm syndrome. By the end, nothing seemed too extreme, but it was exhilarating. And to watch those two films back to back and then go see Terrifier through with a mate, and we're just laughing all the way through it. And in an audience in a dark room full of people, and they're not all drooling maniacs, they're kind of,
Yeah,
there's
yeah,
a
yeah.
but they're sort of normal people who like horror, who've packed this cinema out, especially with 1 and 2, to see these movies, and you sort of kind of you're more tuned into the spirit in which they're made. These are crowd pleasing movies
Yeah.
that are made with a lot of integrity. They're not. There's no pandering. There's no kowtowing. I say they're crowd pleasing. It's like, and also I love the fact that he's gone out there in an age where there's so many restrictions on what you can and can't do in cinema. And he's just gone out there and made this movie. He's been punished with an unrated certificate, and people have gone to see it, and it's absolutely
Mm,
cleaned up. And I love that. And I
yeah.
love, and I come back to it. I love that he dethroned Joker 2, even though when I saw Joker 2, there were elements of it that I actually quite liked and felt like, in its own way, it had its own vision. I think it was a misconceived vision, but it had its own vision, but it just shouldn't have cost that much money. And it was just too much money spent on
Mm,
it, and but I'd rather any day of the week, I'd rather watch a Terrifier movie than rewatch Joker 2. which did
yeah.
no, but Joker 2.
Well,
I mean, I think everyone's
Terrifier
everyone's
than
piling on
watch-
Joker 2 at the moment, and it was, you know, there were really laudable, commendable elements of it, and two or three. You know, I was very rough on Joaquin Phoenix. Not that he cares, you know, like two or three episodes ago when we did Gladiator. I actually think he's pretty brilliant in Joker 2. You know, as is Lady Gaga. I think the performances are fantastic.
When I first saw Joker, when I saw you and Murray Franklin, the whole time I was watching, I kept thinking, I hope this guy blows his brains out. And then you did.
I imagine that you didn't see it. You didn't go anywhere near it, did you?
No. I didn't go anywhere near it the moment I heard it was going to be a musical, and the moment that I heard Lady Gaga was in it, I was like, well, I'm not going to see that. I'm just not interested. Show me an Italian film that's 5 out of 10 on IMDb than anything like that. You know, that has something for me.
But she's really good. Actually, she's a good actress.
I'm sure she is.
Yeah. And her songs are really good. I think my issue with it being a musical is it's all sort of torch songs and ballads. What you want in a Joker musical is like is a little bit more. Yeah, is kind of big. Big sort of kind of bizarre, perverse Busby Berkeley routines. You don't get any of that. So it's actually, and everything you see in the trailer that seems to indicate the anarchy of it all takes place in his head. So it's actually a really maudlin, slow. I tell you what it reminded me of. It reminded me of One from the Heart, and that it was just kind of like One from the Heart with a psychopath at the center of it. You know, who becomes increasingly like more maudlin as the film goes on. So it's just it's not a Joker movie. Whereas I think Art the Clown is more of a Joker movie. Terrifier 3. So if whatever you were wanting from that, just go and see Terrifier 3 if you can stomach the gore, and you'll get your fix.
I want to just mention the bar scene in Terrifier 3, which I thoroughly enjoyed. I mean, I thoroughly enjoyed it because Daniel Roebuck was in it, and as was Clint Howard. And the barman was played by a guy called Bradley Stryker, who did some of the O'Driscoll voices in Red Dead Redemption 2, which I thought that was quite interesting. Yeah. Brilliant. He was really good.
You borrow from the O'Driscoll boys, you pay the O'Driscoll boys.
All three of those guys were great. The whole scene
and they're all
was
men
great,
killed three whole sequence, 3 men.
Why I loved it. Why I loved it, mate. I loved it. I thought it was brilliant. And the whole not nitrous oxide, what is it? Nitroglycerin. What is it?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Liquid nitrogen. Yeah. As a way to kill people was fucked up and brutal, and I respected it.
None of them deserve it. That's the thing as well. None of them deserve it. They're all being really nice to him. They're all
He pees on him, doesn't he? First, he's like sat on his knee and he pees on him. It's so out of order.
But it's also when he walks by the window and like how he gets excited and jumps up and down. He's grinning at the Santa costume. So when you think, that's really sweet, and he just looks like a little kid who's really excited to see Santa, and he comes in, and you almost forget what he's there for, and you're kind of thinking, because you think, is this going to be one of those moments where he just it's not, it's a setup for a sort of trilogy of really horrible kills. But you kind of almost, and I think this is why that sequence works. You're almost sort of thinking, no, is this a moment where he's just going to have a moment off from being a murderer and just enjoy hanging out with these guys and being with Santa and all of that sort of stuff? And
there's not a chance.
You're taking 5 minutes away from his like brutalizing, just to have a little drink and that it would kind of it would be nice. That I would have liked that. It would have given him sort of more dimension, but he's just a non-stopping juggernaut of death and destruction, isn't he? And I suppose that's the deal with Art the Clown. That's who he is.
And any and every slasher movie.
Yeah. I also like there was an 80s element that I didn't like. I think was it set in the 80s, the first one or something?
I didn't. I think it's set now. I don't know. I mean, do they use mobile phones? I don't know. I can't remember. I didn't really kind of question when it was set, but
It felt like there was an aesthetic to maybe the first or the second one, and I was just like, I'm just over all that, mate. I'm over any just setting something in the 80s. That whole Stranger Things nonsense. I'm just I can't be doing with it. The pastel colors, the synthy music. It's just I just miss me with that stuff. It feels so forced, and it feels like directors are just sort of begging it a little bit too much. But yes, yeah. That's my. Have you got anything? I did like the little demon girl as well as an addition, although her spoiling herself or whatever at the beginning in the laundrette is again. It's just like it's just unnecessary.
Yeah, no, that was the one scene I wish they cut out actually. Yeah.
In the ninth circle. Oh no, sorry. In the end of at the end of Terrifier, they're on a bus, right? I'm not spoiling it or anything, but there's a woman on the bus reading a book called The Ninth Circle. Did you notice that? And
I didn't.
And the by Rosemary Castavet. It said I don't know if she's something, but the guy who plays the bus driver is Phil Falcone, who's like a producer who's been producing all the Terrifier movies, and he's the bus driver at the end of 3. So I just thought, okay, that's a nice little. I like those little things,
And also, Lauren Lavera was in Iron Fist, which I mentioned earlier, which your mate Sasha was in. So it'd be interesting to see.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if they shared a scene or not. So it'd be interesting to see if
he knows her. Yeah,
if he knows her. Yeah, and what she's like. Seems very nice. Yeah,
I'm sure, mate. I'm sure if you're a stunt person and going into acting, I'm sure you're already kind of down to earth enough. Usually, most of the stunt people are, from what I hear, like when Sasha was doing Iron Fist, he said everybody was really lovely.
Yeah. Cool. Well, yeah. Are we murdered
out? I'm terrified, mate. I'm absolutely terrified.
I love these films. I probably shouldn't, but I really like them. I'm in for the ride. Can't wait for Terrifier 4 and 5.
Yeah.
And I love Damian Leone. I love David Howard Thornton and Lauren
Lavera, yeah.
Laverne. Thought she was great, Nikki, back in the day. As a like little Geordie. Think she's great on Desert Island Discs. Love the way she fights, continually fights the good fight, dressed as a sexy Valkyrie or not.
Yeah.
With Art the Clown. Yeah, brilliant. Love it.
Yeah, we'll tee up. Next episode is going to be we're going to be punching up at Guillermo del Toro's The Shape of Water.
The Shape of Water, which I love. I'm a massive Guillermo del Toro fan. Think he's brilliant. I think you blow hot and cold on him. Am I right?
Yeah, for sure.
Not a massive fan of The Shape of Water. His Oscar-winning masterpiece.
That came from an email trail that we did years ago where I ripped into The Shape of Water and didn't like it when everybody else did, and just got loads of Oscar attention, and I just wasn't feeling it. But I'll rewatch it and see if I still hate it as much as I hated it before. A love story that doesn't have any love in it, like Love Actually. It's just not really about love, is it? It's just about men treating women badly. Love Actually. Anyway, that's not a film that we're going to be punching up at any time soon, I don't think.
No, I like Love Actually, so we could do. That's a Christmas film. Could have done that. Could have done that now instead of making you watch all of this.
I'd much rather watch Terrifier 3.
A lot more disturbing than the Terrifier trilogy.
Yeah.
And on a related note, just have to say how good Hugh Grant was in Heretic, and I hope he gets an Oscar on it. Yeah, he's phenomenal.
Brilliant. Yeah. I agree. Yeah. All right. Is that it?
Yeah.
We done? All right.
Yeah.
Well, happy Christmas, everybody. You'll be hearing from us soon, whether you like it or not. So from sunny Australia.
Yeah. And rainy England. And if you see a pale-faced Santa in your local shopping centre or mall or whatever you call it, stay well away.
Yeah, because it might be Adam.
It might be me.
Yes, until next time. Peace.
Bye.
The mission has been completed.
Groovy.